Reporters over at the Washington Post have obtained WhatsApp chat logs involving some of the most wealthy and influential people in the United States working together to influence media coverage, politicians, and even university presidents on Israel, the war on Gaza, and the university protests. Now, let's talk a little bit about what this group is, who consists of this group, and what their main goals are. So according to the Washington Post, which again obtained these chat logs and reported on some of the details, the group was formed shortly after the October 7th Hamas attacks in Israel. Members of this chat are even coordinating with various Israeli government officials and have even attended some private briefings with these officials. So the names that were specified in the reporting included the former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, Benny Gantz, who of course is the member of the Israeli War Cabinet, and another individual that they had private briefings with is Israel's ambassador to the United States, Michael Herzog. Now, members of this chat group also coordinated for screenings of the footage that IDF soldiers had compiled from October 7th. They turned it into a 40+ minute film titled Bearing Witness to the October 7th Massacre. And they wanted to screen the film at universities, and Ackman, who was actually part of, Steve Ackman, who was one of the individuals who was part of this group, succeeded in getting Harvard to screen the film. Now, titled Israel Current Events, the chat eventually expanded to about 100 members. The chat log shows more than a dozen members of the group appear on Forbes' annual list of billionaires. Others work in real estate, finance, and communication. So I think that description is important to kind of understand just how influential these individuals are. These are people who have really succeeded in their career path. They've got resources to burn, and they want to use those resources to influence the conversation and policy that has to do with the war in Gaza and some of these protests that have been popping up on university campuses. So I want to give you a few specific examples of what they attempted to accomplish, and to some extent certainly did accomplish. So business executives, including Kind Snack Company founder Daniel Lubetsky, hedge fund manager Daniel Loeb, billionaire Len Blavatnik, and real estate investor Joseph Sitt held a Zoom call on April 26th with Mayor, of course, New York City Mayor Eric Adams. And that was about a week after the mayor first sent New York police to Columbia's campus, a log of chat messages show. Now, based on the reporting from the Washington Post, they seem to be very focused on getting the police involved to dismantle the Columbia University pro-peace encampment. And they did succeed in that. And they even had a Zoom meeting with New York Mayor Eric Adams, where there were some interesting things proposed, right? So the messages describing the call with Adams were in a WhatsApp chat among some of the nation's most prominent business leaders and financiers, according to according to Washington Post. That includes the former CEO of Starbucks, Howard Schultz, the Dell founder and CEO, Michael Dell. You have hedge fund manager Bill Ackman. I think I referred to him as Steve Ackman earlier. It's Bill Ackman, and Joshua Kushner, who of course is Jared Kushner's brother, and Jared Kushner is the former president's son-in-law. Now, during the call, some attendees discussed making political donations to Adams, as well as how the chat group's members could pressure Columbia's president and trustees to permit the mayor to send police to the campus to handle protesters, according to chat messages summarizing the conversation. One member of the WhatsApp group told the Post he donated $2,100, the maximum legal limit, to Adams that month. So I just want to pause here and just take the time to really absorb the fact that money in politics, of course, is real. You all know this. Cenk can't stop himself from finding a way to talk about it in every story we cover. So you guys know this. But the common counterpoint that you'll hear from, I remember Marco Rubio, the senator from Florida, making this point, that look, it's not that they're giving me legal bribes so I carry out some policy that they want. It's that they know I already like that policy, and they want to support me by giving me the campaign donations. In this case, very clearly, we're talking about an influence campaign where campaign contributions to Eric Adams are meant to influence his response to the Columbia University protesters. So it's a clear example, clear as day. Let me give you some more details. So during that meeting, some of the wealthy participants offered to bankroll private investigators to assist the NYPD with protesters at Columbia. Assist. Now, Adams allegedly accepted the offer based on what one of the members of the group reported. Now, Eric Adams's camp denies this. I'll give you their denial in just a moment. But apparently, one of the members of the group was quoted as saying, and this is in the chat logs, he's open to any ideas we have. Chat member Sid, founder of retail chain Ashley Stewart and the global real estate company Thor Equities, wrote April 27th, the day after the group's Zoom call with Eric Adams. As you saw, he's okay if we hire private investigators to then have this police force intel team work with them, meaning work with the NYPD. I mean, it is incredible, right? It's like they want the cops involved. They want to add even more personnel to the mix in the form of private investigators. And they claim that Eric Adams, gave a nod to that suggestion. However, a representative for the NYPD claims that the department is not using private investigators in response to the protesters. The mayor's office did not address the Zoom meeting with the chat group members directly at all. But the deputy mayor, Fabian Levy, said that New York police entered Columbia's campus twice in response to specific written requests from university leadership, which we're gonna get to in just a moment, because they sought to use their influence on the university president as well. But the deputy mayor also weighed in on how he feels about this reporting in general. Now, keep in mind, this is a straight news report based on, leaked WhatsApp chat logs. And what the deputy mayor had to say to the Washington Post reporters reporting this when they were asking him questions about whether or not the mayor approved the use of private investigators is this: any suggestion that other considerations were involved in the decision-making process is completely false. The insinuation that Jewish donors secretly plotted to influence government operations is an all too familiar anti-Semitic trope that the Washington Post should be ashamed to ask about, let alone normalize in print. So here's my question to Levy. Do the chat logs exist or do they not? Did the individuals, incredibly successful people, influential people, get together in a WhatsApp chat to find ways to use their influence to get what they want policy-wise in response to the student protesters, in response to how Americans view Israel and the Palestinians? Yeah, it exists. Do you think the Washington Post just made it up? And if it exists, are we just supposed to pretend like it doesn't exist because it, in his mind, plays into tropes? I think it's so ridiculous that time and time again, this is the smear that people are met with, even when the straight news reporting speaks for itself. The idea that journalists should lay off these types of stories when we know full well that, when it comes to legalized bribery, when it comes to influence peddling, when it comes, any other context is totally fine and gets reported time to time, right? But when it comes to one specific issue, you're not allowed to talk about how wealth can influence politicians, right? People using their campaign dollars could influence politicians and policies that they decide on. It's again, incredibly ridiculous. And I think that it cheapens the seriousness of real anti-Semitism by referring to journalists doing their jobs as anti-Semites. But nonetheless, let me continue.
Pausing here to deliver some honest truth as we do in our news coverage as well. TYT is facing challenges, guys, as the entire industry is. You know who could make the difference? You. If you hit the join button below, it's gonna make all the difference and keep us in business. We appreciate you, thank you.
So let's talk about the chat logs, including specific messages. And those specific messages are important for the deputy mayor in New York City to address, since he thinks just simply stating the facts of what these messages included is anti-Semitic. But nonetheless, in an October 12th message, one of the first sent in the group, the staffer posting on behalf of Sternlicht told the others the goal of the group was to change the narrative in favor of Israel, partly by conveying the atrocities committed by Hamas to all Americans. That's a direct quote. I didn't say it. This individual said it. And the Washington Post obtained those messages and printed them. There's nothing anti-Semitic about that. Let me continue. Then they were willing to use campaign contributions to influence Eric Adams in how he responded to those Columbia protesters. I already told you a little bit about that, with one of the chat members saying that they had donated $2,100, which was the maximum amount. So they started discussing how to work with Adams the following day after the encampment was formed at Columbia on April 17th. So real estate investor Joseph Sitt responded that he had already been helping out, but can use more support. He asked if others were open to giving to Adams. Yakir Gabay, the Cypriot Israeli real estate billionaire, replied, "Please send the info, thanks." Then Blavatnik posted an Act Blue link allowing donations to the Eric Adams 2025 committee. Daniel Lubetsky messaged, "If there is a group to contribute through or a way to ensure our contributions are known to be related to his efforts to fight anti-Semitism and hate, please let us know and I will support meaningfully alongside you guys." Sitt replied that he was arranging a code for such donations. Asked about this message, Vito Pitta, counsel to Adams's 2025 campaign, said, "There is no special code for contributions." Now, the group realized that, look, it's not just about Eric Adams. If we want police to finally respond to the Columbia University protesters and effectively dismantle their encampment, the way that we're gonna have to do it is get the president of Columbia, right? And that's Shafiq, to give Adams the authorization to call the NYPD into the campus. One member asked if the group could do anything to pressure Columbia trustees to cooperate with the mayor. In reply, former Congressman Ted Deutsch, CEO of the American Jewish Committee, shared a PDF of a letter his organization had sent that day to Columbia President Manoush Shafiq, calling on her to shut these protests down. Also in touch with the board, he wrote to the chat group, so NYPD can return. And of course, they wanted the NYPD to return because they had shown up to the campus more than once in order to do away with the Columbia University protesters. So I can't help but think of something that Bill Maher said earlier this week. It was a story that went viral when he had comedian Bill Burr on the show. This is his podcast. And they were talking about the campus protesters. Bill Maher clearly against the campus protesters, but he thinks that having that opinion means something special, right? Like it means that you have a characteristic that I pushed back on. So let's remember what he had to say.
Yeah, that's easy to say. No one wants to see kids dead. This is a war.
That was very brave of you to say that.
This is a war. No, I'm the one who was actually brave on this.
Pat yourself on the back.
It's easy to say I'm for the kids. Who's not for the kids?
Well,
it comes down to real hard-nosed decisions. Like a country.
Stop talking like you're a general.
A country got attacked. Israel got attacked.
I'm not saying that they didn't have a right to go back. I'm just sitting there going like, how do I look at
what? We're the only country in the world that they get attacked, and then as soon as they counterattack, it's like, well, we got to stop this now. Don't attack them. There's a very simple solution to all this problem in the Middle East. Stop attacking Israel.
Hey, you just
stop attacking Israel.
You just
I did.
solved it.
I actually did.
There you go. That's fantastic.
Anyway.
So Bill Maher referred to his opinions on this whole matter as brave. But how brave are you when literally the most powerful people in the country, the most well-resourced people in the country are on your side, or you're on their side, and you're totally fine with them using their influence to crush the peaceful protesters? Now, look, I also want to state that there have been examples, especially of late, like there have been a few examples that have made me really uncomfortable of protesters engaging in violent acts. But those are not indicative of all of the protesters, and certainly were not indicative of the Columbia University encampment, right? That encampment was peaceful, and things unfortunately became less peaceful once the police were called, once the building was occupied, and then the police were called again. Hundreds of arrests had been made as a result. But again, just going back to Bill Maher, is it really brave when, again, like the most powerful people in the country agree with you and are using their influence to ensure that the policies obviously side with them and what they want? And then one final thing I'll say in response to Bill Maher, because I can't help myself. Look, I agree. If Hamas attacks innocent people, if they commit the kinds of atrocities that they committed on October 7th, of course they should expect a response. But the idea that gives the Israeli government and the Israeli Defense Forces a green light to just kill whoever they want, however they want, and basically, prosecute this war in a way that maximizes civilian casualties. No, they don't have the right to do that. They have the right to go after Hamas, and to be sure, they claim that that's what they're doing. But I think what people miss is that most individuals in this country who are critical of the war in Gaza aren't simply critical because they're against Israel. They're critical over how Israel is carrying out the war. Okay? I mean, you go back to when they first, started going after Hamas in the Gaza Strip, most people were on their side because they did feel that Israelis deserve justice considering the atrocities that were committed against them. But when you see the 2,000-pound bombs dropped on refugee camps, on hospitals, on residential blocks, on apartment buildings, it goes on and on. People start to change their minds. And so when people present you with a binary of you're either for or against Israel, or you're either for or against the Palestinians, those binaries don't make any sense. What makes sense is to take a look at this war, understand the historical context that drive this war, and also understand that you could totally be in favor of Israel going after Hamas, but have a problem with how the current Israeli government is carrying out the war. And that's honestly where I stand today.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.